Have you ever wondered whether fate sometimes arranges meetings that we never expect? Our story begins in Japan, on what looked like just another normal morning. The streets were calm, the air crisp, and nothing suggested that anything unusual was about to happen. But that is the beauty of life transformations, often arrive without warning. On that morning, a man named Jimmy walked quietly down a residential street. Jimmy worked as a scrap collector, and while many might overlook such a role, he carried himself with dignity and politeness in every interaction. For him, collecting discarded items was not simply a means of survival, but also a way to contribute to the community by cleaning and recycling what others left behind. His noticed something outside the gate of a large. Instead of simply collecting them, he chose to act with courtesy. He stepped up to the door and gently rang the bell. His intention was simple: to ask the homeowner's permission before moving the items. When the door slowly opened, Jimmy was not met with just another homeowner. He stood face to face with someone from his past, someone he had never expected to see again. In that instant, the ordinary day transformed into something unforgettable. The woman at the door was Yui. Years ago, she and Jimmy had once worked together in the same company. Back then, Jimmy had been more than just a colleague. He had been a dedicated leader, a source of guidance and kindness to those around him. Yui, as a young employee, had felt his support deeply during those early days of her career. Now, standing at her door, Yui saw Jimmy in a very different circumstance. Time had passed, and life had clearly brought him onto a path filled with challenges. Yet, even as she recognized his changed appearance, she also recognized something greater. His spirit, his humility, and his humanity were still intact. The moment was quiet, but filled with meaning. Life is not a straight road. People change, circumstances shift, and paths diverge in ways we cannot always predict. But when fate brings two lives back together, it can spark feelings of compassion, reflection, and gratitude. Yui did not see only a man collecting scrap. She saw the person who had once shown her kindness, someone who still deserved dignity and respect. At that doorway, an unexpected reunion began to unfold, and with it came the chance for a new chapter of story, not just of two people reconnecting, but of what happens when kindness, memory, and humanity intersect. That evening, when her husband returned home, Yui recounted the day's surprising event. Her husband listened carefully, nodding as she spoke. He too felt moved by the story. Together, they agreed that if an opportunity to help presented itself, they should not hesitate. Their decision was not made from obligation, but from empathy. Over the following days, Yui reached out to Jimmy with small gestures. She offered him meals, shared kind words, and reminded him that he was remembered, not forgotten. Jimmy's response was heartfelt. He expressed deep gratitude, assuring her that even the smallest act of kindness meant more to him than she could imagine. The exchanges between them were simple, yet they carried a powerful emotional weight. For Jimmy, it was a reminder that his past contributions had not vanished into time. Someone remembered him, appreciated him, and saw him for who he was beyond his current struggles. For Yui, it was a chance to repay kindness from the past, and in doing so, rediscover the joy of giving. Her husband also felt inspired by her actions. He encouraged her not to worry about how much or how little they could offer. Sometimes, he said gently, the most valuable gift is not material, but the feeling of being respected, seen, and cared for. These words stayed with Yui. They reassured her that their gestures, no matter how modest, were meaningful. Together, she and her husband found joy in extending a hand of support, not as charity, but as an acknowledgement of human connection. In this unexpected reunion, the past and present blended beautifully. A simple knock at the door had led to something far more significant: the revival of old memories, the strengthening of compassion, and the realization that kindness is never wasted. As days passed, Yui continued to think about her reunion with Jimmy. Though their encounters were brief, each left her reflecting on the unpredictability of life and the importance of kindness. Yet, as with many heartfelt experiences, emotions sometimes brought unexpected worries. She began to notice that Jimmy appeared more often in the neighborhood. He never asked for anything, nor did he act inappropriately. Still, a quiet thought crept into her mind. Was she doing enough? Was she doing too much? She wondered if her gestures of support might unintentionally create an expectation that she could not always fulfill. These were not feelings of regret, but of responsibility. Yui valued the sincerity of their renewed connection, but she also valued balance in her own life. She wanted to help, yet she also feared misunderstanding. Her husband, ever thoughtful, reassured her. Kindness is powerful, he reminded her gently, but we must also trust that people carry their own strength. What we offer should empower, not create dependency. And sometimes, simply showing respect is already more than enough. Yui considered his words carefully. Over time, she chose to step back slightly, not because her heart closed, but because she wanted Jimmy to feel free rather than beholden. She hoped that the seeds of kindness she and her husband had planted would serve as encouragement for him to continue forward with dignity. One day, the doorbell suddenly rang. Yui walked to the door, her mind racing with curiosity. When she opened it, there stood Jimmy once again. His expression was calm, his posture humble, and in his hands was nothing more than a respectful bow of gratitude. He had not come to ask for anything. He had only returned to say thank you from the depths of his heart. In that moment, Yui felt a wave of emotion wash over her. All her earlier doubts melted away, replaced by a profound sense of peace. She realized that her acts, no matter how small, had made a meaningful difference. Her husband, upon hearing the story that night, felt the same. Both of them carried a quiet sense of humility, understanding that kindness is not measured by size, but by sincerity. From then on, Jimmy did not return. Perhaps life had led him to new places, perhaps to new chances. Yet his presence lingered in their memory, not as a burden, but as a reminder of the unexpected power of human connection. Their story reminds us that respect, empathy, and gratitude are never wasted. Sometimes the most ordinary days hold extraordinary lessons, teaching us that compassion is the quiet force that connects people, even through unexpected reunions.